Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, David, for the introduction. I'd like to share with you the challenges and opportunities. As you have heard so far, there are plenty of challenges to go around, and the next decade in MRO will really be very interesting. This way. Yeah, it works. Now, not everybody is familiar with SIAEC engineering company, so you can imagine I'm in charge of IT and I don't know how to use a clicker. So anyway, I'd like to give you a quick introduction of the SIAEC engineering company first, and then I will talk about the market profile, which really after 3 speeches wouldn't need much of an effort. And then I will also touch on the challenges and opportunities facing us in the coming decade. So a little bit about the company. SIAEC engineering company used to be the engineering arm of the airline. In 1992, it was hived off from the main airline, but it was still wholly owned. And then in the year 2000, it was listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange. But basically the message was, you guys learn how to compete, you guys learn how to manage costs, and you guys learn how to survive in the world. And today we have an employee strength of 5,500, and we have 20 over approvals from the authorities. And at the bottom is the financial report over the last 3 financial years, and we're doing okay. The growth is very, very moderate, and the profit continues to move in the right direction. Now, SIAEC engineering company is a bit different from your typical MRO because we're hived off from the airline. We have the advantage of leveraging on the airline's aircraft purchasing. As the fleet renews, we took the opportunity to form many joint ventures with the OEMs in order to leverage on the airline and also to enhance our own strengths. And these decisions are made started almost 2 decades ago. And today we have a stable of 25 JVs. The first to start is the one in the center, and this is separated into the engine-related MROs on your left, and then in the center are the component MROs, and on the right, the line maintenance and airframe MROs. So the one that got started first was the one in the center at the top, and this is Singapore GEMCO. So this was a JV between GEMCO Japan and Singapore SIAEC Engineering Company, and it was based here in Singapore. And the other significant one, after that first one in 1988, and there was quite a long time ago, was the one on the far left at the top row, which is Eagle Services Asia, which is basically we sold our engine shop, or we sold 51% of our engine shop to Pratt & Whitney, and we formed a joint venture there. And today, you'll see in Loyang, you just drive a couple of kilometers from here. And since then, there have been many more joint ventures being formed. And as SIAEC bought the 777s and equipped it with the Rolls-Royce engines, we also took the opportunity to form more engine shops with Rolls-Royce. And the rest of the block on the left are the supporting shops, because the engine shop itself requires a lot of supporting shops, whether it be the burner or the case or the compressor blades. All these require special shops. In fact, there's even one JV which we have called IAT Asia, and it is again based in Loyang. All they do is repair tubes, and it is a viable business by itself. So it's wonderful, isn't it? How complex the engine is, and you can make a business case out of simple things like tubes. In the center are the component MROs, and we have had the good fortune of tying up with people like Goodrich, people like Panasonic, in fact, this is the right at the bottom of the middle block is Panasonic Services Asia, which they're based here and they provide servicing for in-flight entertainment system. And I think we are the first to buy the Panasonic in-flight entertainment system. This was a good 15 years ago, and we continue to use them today even on the latest aircraft. And on the right are the line maintenance and hangar joint ventures. And there's a big one in Indonesia, there's a moderate one in Australia, and there's one in Vietnam where we operate out of Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. So my line maintenance colleagues used to proudly tells me that together they arrive an aircraft every 2 minutes. So of course that's mathematically speaking. So you can tell from there that the strategy of our MRO is first to be airline linked. After all, we are majority owned by Singapore Airlines, and OEM linked. And we will see how in the next 5 to 10 slides we'll see if we're on the right path and what's going to happen in the future. Well, a little bit about market trends, although I'm sure you do not require further convincing. There have been so many slides shown that the future is rosy for MRO in this part of the world. You are expecting huge growth. And this is from AAPA, which is the Association of Asia Pacific Airlines. And they are the club of the 15 major airlines in Asia. And they are talking about 5-6% growth from last year. But I think for the legacy airlines, the growth will be moderate. And the next slide, you will see the LCC growth, and you can see an explosion of LCC growth. And if you sit at the terminal, you will witness this very clearly. And again, Asia is leading with 20%, 28, 29% LCC growth. Whether they are LCC or main carriers, they require MRO services, and there are opportunities for the MROs. Now this is, this slide is a little bit outdated, it's 2012, but you can see that the MRO spend, this is projected all the way from 2012 to 2022. You can see a huge spend in Asia, and this is excluding China. This is the other challenge that we face in Singapore. It's no secret that the labor cost in Singapore is very high. In fact, on the other chart, you can see comparing to the cost of an engineer in the Philippines, in Indonesia, compared to Singapore, is a huge, huge difference. Of course, Singapore and Hong Kong have almost similar costs, but it's significantly higher than the rest. So it is this cost difference that made us expand to Clark. Now, Clark is an interesting site. I was there in the 1990s after the volcano near the Clark decided to show off its power, and the American Air Force has departed. And when I went there, I was shocked. I've never seen so much ash in my life. The ash is all over the place, and the bulldozers just shove it to the end of the taxiways, the runways, the parking bays. And for the first time, I see ash piled up 2-story high, kilometers long. That's how much ash we talked about. Of course, at that time, the Americans left behind some basic facilities, and there was huge opportunities for MRO to move in and develop the place. And SIAEC went in and built this first hangar in 2009. It's a narrow body hangar, and then subsequently followed by a second narrow body hangar. And then we decided to build a wide body hangar, which will be ready sometime in the middle of 2014. So the wide body hangar will take a 747 and a 777 easily, of course. If you do wish to send a 380, then the body could go in, but we wouldn't be able to check up because of the height restriction. On the line maintenance side, I mentioned just now we have a couple of joint ventures and wholly owned subsidiaries operating in a few regions in the world. We went as far as Los Angeles and San Francisco, where we support Singapore Airlines and a few other customers. Of course, in Indonesia, we're quite big because of our JV with PTJ. And in Australia, we operate out of 5 stations. Philippines, we have a joint venture with Cebu Pacific. And in Hong Kong, we form an alternative MRO to HEICO. And the rates are the potential stations in future that we will go in when the business case justifies. Now, with the increase in costs, of course, Singapore will continue to be our main base because many of our key customers are here. So we have to take opportunities to raise productivity. And productivity is very important in order to cope with the annual cost increase in wages. And I'm giving here 4 examples of productivity opportunities that we have either achieved or are in the process of achieving. Now, the most interesting bit, and I'm speaking this because I'm also responsible for IT in the MRO, so I've taken a special interest in this. Handheld technology has reached a stage where we could use it on the hangar floor and we could use it on the ramp. And so far, I'm not aware of any MRO who has done this on a pervasive scale. So with the affordability of handheld, with the power of handheld, of course you would have to re-engineer the entire process and link to the back-end system. And then you could do end-to-end, effectively paperless. So from the time you plan your work to the time you do the billing, it is almost instantaneous. And this is just one opportunity. So here we are trialing the center is an iPad, and we are trialing what we call operator's handling form out on the line. But it requires Wi-Fi technology or 3G technology. So we've got to find the most effective way of doing this. Another example where we have to push productivity to cope with the rising costs. This tools on demand. Small thing, but it is again making use of technology. And for those of you who are familiar with operation on the line, you have hundreds of people spread over kilometers of the apron. And the old-fashioned way of getting tools is to send the engineer or send the technician back to your center and collect the tools. So we have made arrangements where we have effectively a bit of a delivery service. The tools are requested digitally and the tools are sent out there, and the recording and the acknowledgement all done electronically. In fact, in the line, all our tools are RFID coded so that you could the checking is a lot easier, especially in today's security environment. You don't want to leave any tools on the plane or on the engine. It's not very good. So, and this RFID allows you to do checks very quickly and very effectively. This is another example where we try to cut down on labor. This is a robotic washing machine for aircraft. This is a $1.2 million piece of machinery, so it's not cheap, but it is a lot better than the earlier generations, and you could effectively clean aircraft with half the manpower we used to have. This is another example where instead of sending 2 crew out to do a pushback, especially for small planes, there are electric air tugs around today that could do this with effectively 1 person. So this will be significant. Now, what is even more significant is not so much that you could do it with 1 person, but that this equipment is a lot cheaper than the traditional air tugs we used to have. Now, What does that mean? Well, the accountant, of course, is happy because it's a smaller capital outlay. But the other implication is I could buy more of this, and I could effectively place one at all the bays that deal with narrow-body aircraft. So that means less air tugs running around, less traffic accidents, less congestion at the terminal. So the impact is a lot more than just labor. This slide is trying to talk about product integration. Those of you who are familiar with the 787s and the 350 would know that even at the design stage, Boeing and Airbus have moved away from the traditional style where they have 40, 50, 60 vendors managing all the systems on the airplane. On these two aircraft, they have reduced, in fact, they subcontract the cockpit and subcontract the hydraulics, the electrics to one vendor. So they have cut back from 40, 50 vendors to a handful of vendors. And this makes it easier for Boeing and Airbus to manage the project. But it also poses different challenges when it comes to MRO. Again, this is an opportunity that we have capitalized on. Knowing that all these changes are coming, we have moved into fleet management. And fleet management has some advantages for LCCs. LCCs could not afford the big structure that legacy airlines, full-service airlines have. A big engineering department, a big quality department, a big planning department. LCCs would like to operate all these with 3 persons. So a fleet management services subcontracted to us will allow the LCC or a small, even a full-service carrier to operate lean and leave the planning and engineering work to us. In turn, we could then outsource the touch labor and the MRO portion back to the MRO company. So again, this was touched on in the earlier slides. The Boeings, the Airbus, the Honeywells realize that there are opportunities to be made in aftermarket, after sales, and they are moving in big time. Of course, Boeing has come up with the Gold Care, which they struggled with for some years, but they are refining it, and I'm sure at some point, Gold Care will reach a stage where it would be competitive and pose a threat to the MROs. On the engine side, it's been going on for almost 2 decades, and today, almost every engine sold eventually end up with a power, and very, very few airlines would actually spend $1 billion or $500 million to build an engine shop to maintain the engines. In fact, I remember in the old days when we were operating the Pratt & Whitney engines, we maintain it ourselves. We have a huge shop. We have 400 employees, and we have 40 spare engines at that time. It's huge numbers. And today, with the 777 fleets and the 380 fleets, we are nowhere close to 40 spare engines. So this is where when these are subcontracted out to a specialist, they are much more effective in managing inventory. Another example would be general spares. If you work for an airline, one of the big legacy airlines, they used to be very proud that they have $1 billion worth of spares sitting in their warehouses. And if you visit them, they will show you the warehouse and see how clever we are in having $1 billion worth of spares, if not more. Of course, today nobody does it anymore because it would be a real shame to have that amount of money locked down. And today, of course, most of it are outsourced. So I used to tell my colleagues who are not from the MRO industry what this means. It means that if you, as a household, you own a mini supermarket to yourself, and your neighbor owns a mini supermarket, and so forth. And why do you want to own a supermarket? So that when you need sugar, you can go down to your mini supermarket and get your own sugar. And that's what it means. So these are some of the huge changes now taking place in the industry. And for some of you might know, for Airbus, the Airbus A330 fleet that Singapore Airlines fly, they have outsourced the maintenance of the 330 to Airbus. And Airbus is actually the fleet manager, who in turn outsourced the MRO back to SIA Engineering Company. And I'm sure later on there'll be discussion on what is the value add by all these third parties. So this one more or less we have touched. So in a way we are fortunate that the relationships with the parent and the parent airline and the decision more than 2 decades ago to link up with the MROs have given us some reprieve, some relief from the current trend where the IP is being controlled by the OEMs and the mainframers. And if we are an independent MRO, we will be really facing challenges. As have been mentioned in the earlier speeches, is MRO going to be a commodity? And who is going to control it? And what is the value add? And what will be left for the MRO at the end of the day? There is also the other issue. How much work is needed for the new generation of airplanes? And I've worked from the 707 all the way to today's 380. And it is clear that the 747 requires a lot more man hours than the 777s, and a bit more on the 777s and the 330s and so forth. And the prediction is that the 787 and the 350 will require even less maintenance. In fact, they will not get their first heavy maintenance until 8 years down the road. And this will significantly change the landscape of MROs. And a lot of work will be pushed out to the line. And the so-called A check will be broken into small pieces, which you could do within 6 hours, in 3-hour blocks or 6-hour blocks or 9-hour blocks. So with that, I'd like to end my presentation, and I'm sure if you have questions, we'll be happy to deal with you at the panel level. Thank you very much.